As promised, this week's video is going to be all about Telstra and network outages. As you probably heard by now, Telstra had a network outage last Monday, and in the spirit of that, I'm going to be talking about my own experience with Telstra as a former customer and how I got compensation to the value of 2 months worth of bills for a previous network outage. Now, as always, the disclaimer applies. I'm not a lawyer, and this video is not intended to be, nor should it be interpreted as legal advice in any way, shape or form. And as such, I do not accept any responsibility for what anybody does as a result of this video and or any resulting consequences in any way. Now, viewers should consider the individual merits of their own case or cases before taking any action. A few years back, I experienced a network outage whilst away for work in a remote town in the Northern Territory. It was a fine and sunny day, as is the case for much of the Northern Territory during the dry season when this outage occurred. In fact, there had been little to no rain for months. When I made it back home, I submitted a complaint to Telstra and demanded 2 months worth of bills valued at $154 to be credited to my account as compensation for the outage. I got a call back from a Telstra staff member who said that she could apply it at the end of the billing cycle and that she would call me then to arrange the credit to my account. Well, she did end up calling me back at the end of the billing cycle, but she reneged on the promise she made and refused to compensate me in any way. I then submitted a complaint to the Telecommunication Industry Ombudsman, or TIO. I explained the situation to them and maintained my demand for 2 months worth of bills as compensation. Not long after that, I received a phone call from a Telstra staff member telling me that they would only give me $50 compensation. I turned down the offer and maintained my demand for the 2 months worth of bills. He went on to make all these excuses about terms of contract, etc. I told him I wasn't interested in listening to these excuses. He then had the nerve to say that the outage was due to a storm and that they cannot control the weather. I couldn't believe the nerve this guy had to lie to me so brazenly. I called him on this false claim, given the weather conditions on the day of the outage and the weather that is typical for that part of the Northern Territory at that time of the year. And he responded with, "Oh, well, that's what our engineers wrote in the report." Despite all of this, he persisted that $50 was all that I was going to get. I told him where he could shove that $50, and I hung up the phone on him. I reported back to the ombudsman and escalated my complaint. A TIO representative called me and discussed my complaint further, and then not long after that, I received a phone call from Telstra saying that they were going to credit my account with the amount that I was demanding, which was $154, as a goodwill gesture. As for the false claims made by the engineers regarding the weather, they actually weren't too interested in dealing with that at all. In fact, when I gave them the choice, they told me they were not going to investigate it. Personally, I don't want to do business with a company that brazenly displays such arrogance and corruption. I am going to leave you with one final thought. As I said before, there is going to be a lot of customers that were affected by last week's outage that aren't going to pursue Telstra for compensation because they can't be bothered or for whatever reason. And Telstra, having ruled out mass compensations and saying that they're only going to deal with each individual customer on a case-by-case basis, is nothing other than a squalid tactic to weed these kind of customers out. Now, I'm not here to tell anybody what to do. As I said, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not here to give out advice as such, but it just pisses me off to know that Telstra is going to save probably millions of dollars because of these kinds of customers that aren't going to hold Telstra to account for their shortcomings. They're supposed to provide you with this service, and last Monday they failed to do that. Let that sink in, and you do what you think is best for you. I hope you enjoyed this week's video, especially if you are a Telstra customer and were affected by last week's network outage. I know what it feels like. I used to be a Telstra customer myself, and I've experienced network outages through them myself, and I know how you feel. If you like the video, give it a like, comment below, and remember, there's going to be a new video every week, so be sure to subscribe to my channel for more mind-blowing stories, and I hope to see you next week for my next story.